The Roman Empire was one of the most powerful civilizations the world has ever seen, spanning continents and influencing cultures for centuries. But have you ever wondered how something so mighty could collapse so spectacularly? Was it invincible armies from beyond its borders, political corruption, or something even more insidious? Stick around, because by the end of this video, you'll not only understand what caused Rome to fall, you'll see how its story still resonates in today's world. At its peak, the Roman Empire stretched from the windswept shores of Britain to the deserts of North Africa, from the Atlantic Ocean to the Euphrates River. For over 1,000 years, it seemed unstoppable. Roads, aqueducts, architecture, and governance, Rome built it all. But like all great empires, it eventually fell. And no, it wasn't just one catastrophic event, like an earthquake or a single battle. The fall of the Roman Empire was a slow unraveling, a death by 1,000 cuts. So, what caused this empire to crumble? The truth lies in a fascinating cocktail of internal weaknesses and external pressures. And trust me, some of the reasons might surprise you. Let's start with money, the lifeblood of any empire. In the late stages of the Roman Empire, its economy was in shambles. Heavy taxation crippled citizens, particularly farmers. Rome relied heavily on slave labor, and as military conquests slowed, so did the influx of new slaves. Without new slaves to work the vast Roman estates, agricultural output suffered. On top of that, inflation became rampant. The government began debasing its currency, mixing less valuable metals into coins to mint more money. Sound familiar? Economic instability is a problem that transcends history. And here's where it gets even worse. Rome spent enormous sums on its military. Maintaining such a vast empire required defending thousands of miles of borders. More on that later. But for now, imagine trying to run a household when your income is dropping, your expenses are skyrocketing, and you're borrowing just to stay afloat. That's what Rome was facing. Now, let's talk politics. The Roman Empire was infamous for its political corruption, particularly during its later years. Emperors were often chosen not for their leadership abilities, but because of bribes, alliances, or outright coups. In one 50-year period, Rome saw over 20 emperors, many of whom were assassinated. How can a government focus on governing when its leaders are constantly looking over their shoulders, paranoid about being stabbed in the back, sometimes literally? This instability trickled down to every level of governance. Provincial governors exploited their regions for personal gain. Military generals often acted independently, using their armies to vie for power. The result? A fractured system with no clear leadership. But here's something most people don't realize. The Roman Senate, once the proud backbone of the Republic, had become little more than a symbolic institution. By the end, it held no real power, leaving the empire in the hands of weak or tyrannical emperors. Overexpansion and military overreach. Rome's vast size was both its greatest strength and its greatest weakness. At its height, the empire was simply too large to govern effectively. Communication was slow even with their advanced road systems. Defending the empire's sprawling borders became an insurmountable challenge. Barbarian tribes, once kept at bay by Rome's might, began to test the empire's limits. The Goths, Vandals, Huns, and others launched repeated invasions, exploiting Rome's inability to defend everywhere at once. And here's the kicker. The Roman military itself was stretched thin. By the later years of the empire, Rome had begun relying on mercenaries, foreign soldiers hired to fight. While they bolstered the ranks, their loyalty was often questionable. Some of these mercenaries turned on Rome, aiding its enemies in key moments. Cultural decay and loss of civic virtue. But Rome didn't just fall from external pressures. It also rotted from within. The values and civic pride that once defined Roman citizens began to erode. In the earlier days of the empire, Romans were known for their discipline, patriotism, and sense of duty. But over time, decadence set in. Wealth disparities grew wider. The elites threw lavish parties while the poor struggled to survive. Bread and circuses, free food, and gladiatorial games became a tool to pacify the masses, distracting them from the empire's deeper problems. Does this sound familiar? The parallels to modern times are striking. When entertainment and indulgence replace innovation and responsibility, decline is often not far behind. The rise of Christianity. Now, let's address one of the most debated factors: the rise of Christianity. By the 4th century, Christianity had gone from a persecuted minority religion to the official faith of the empire. Some historians argue that this shift weakened Rome's traditional institutions. The worship of Roman gods, once integral to the empire's identity, was replaced with a new faith that often prioritized the spiritual world over the material one. Others suggest that Christianity provided a unifying moral framework during a time of chaos, offering hope to the downtrodden. So, was Christianity a cause of Rome's fall or a response to its decline? The answer might be a bit of both. The barbarian invasions. Of course, no discussion of Rome's fall would be complete without mentioning the barbarians. Throughout its history, Rome faced pressure from tribes along its borders. But in the 4th and 5th centuries, these pressures became overwhelming. The Visigoths, led by Alaric, famously sacked Rome in 410 AD, a shocking event that symbolized the empire's vulnerability. Later, the Vandals followed suit, and in 476 AD, the last Roman emperor in the West, Romulus Augustulus, was deposed by the Germanic chieftain Odoacer. But here's an interesting twist. The Eastern Roman Empire, also known as the Byzantine Empire, survived for nearly another 1,000 years. This raises a fascinating question. Was it the Western Empire's unique challenges that caused its fall, or was it simply the first domino in a longer process? The lessons of Rome. So, what can we learn from the fall of the Roman Empire? It's a story of complexity, an empire brought down not by one single factor, but by a combination of economic troubles, political corruption, military overreach, cultural shifts, and external pressures. But perhaps the most sobering lesson is this: no empire, no matter how mighty, is immune to decline. History teaches us that neglecting problems, whether they're economic, political, or cultural, only accelerates the fall. And here's something to think about as we wrap up. Are there any parallels between the fall of Rome and our world today? Declining civic engagement, political polarization, economic challenges sound familiar? The story of Rome isn't just history, it's a warning. Conclusion. The fall of the Roman Empire was a tragedy for the ancient world, but its legacy lives on. Its ruins still inspire awe, its laws influenced modern governance, and its story captivates us to this day. If you've enjoyed this exploration of why Rome fell, make sure to like and subscribe for more deep dives into history's greatest mysteries. And remember, history isn't just about the past, it's about understanding how we got here and where we might be headed. Stay curious, and I'll see you in the next video.